One of the first things I wrote and we published on the site on Black Nerd Problems, I did like this 3-part, the DC movie problem kind of. The first, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, the first one I talked about was kind of my issue with Man of Steel. The second was how important Green Lantern is to the DCU. And, and before I knew it would have this impact, but look at what Guardians of the Galaxy has just done for Marvel. It is up their world in terms of where they can go with movies now, and how weird they can be with movies, and how experimental. Green Lantern is that, right? Like, it is not, the heroes we relate to from Green Lantern are human and they're from Earth, but the whole point of Green Lantern is this, this universal, or this, in the universe, police. So the problem is more so that they will not try another Green Lantern anytime soon, and I think there are too many people that believe that Green Lantern failed because people didn't like Green Lantern. No, Green Lantern failed because it was a fucking movie. And the entity that is Green Lantern is a really cool thing. And I would argue for my money, and this is always a good debate, but I think the best crossover event that's happened in DC since, like, I don't know, Final Crisis or whatever, has been the Sinestro Corps War. And Sinestro is personally one of my favorite characters in all of the DCU. And I think it's like a crime that we're not going to get any Sinestro. And the funny thing is, as terrible as the Green Lantern was, I think, is it Mark Strong?
Mark Strong, yeah.
Was actually, I thought he was a good Sinestro, right? I just think he's one of the best characters. And I think that world, especially if you go into what Jeff Johns did with Green Lantern, with all the different Lantern Corps, the possibility for diversity there, the possibility of like all these different creatures. I mean, look how big a hit Raccoon and Groot are for, but you go to Green Lantern and you got characters like Kilowog and the Raccoon, and you know what I mean, like the Squirrel. I mean, there's so many things that they can do with Green Lantern, let alone if you give it a great CG budget of how great a Green Lantern movie can look.
The Green Lantern movie was an ugly movie. It was an ugly movie. They made a good Green Lantern movie, though, right before it. Like the DC Universe one. They made one that was basically Training Day in space, and it was awesome.
Oh, the animated DVD movie with Nathan Fillion?
Yeah.
I just think there's so much you can do with it. I think Hal Jordan's a pretty cool character. Ryan Reynolds cannot play every comic book character. Let's move away from that.
But they were definitely, I mean, you could clearly see with Green Lantern that they were trying to set up a broader DC universe. And you talk about Sinestro, that seemed to be that that was what they were hinting at with the post-credit sequences, that they were going with Sinestro Corps. So I mean, it was the utter failure of Green Lantern that kind of derailed any potential DC universe cinematically, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I look at it like, now that we've cast 17 heroes for, the Batman versus Man of Steel movie or whatever, I think it's very telling we haven't heard anything about Green Lantern. It's very debatable of how good consistently Jeff Johns is as a writer.
Yeah, that's very debatable.
It is very debatable because his highs are really, really high. But sometimes he's really average, or if you read Justice League, since New 52 started, you dip below that. But I think that, Sinestro Corps Wars is a masterpiece. Like, the Blackest Night, oh my God, you know what I would give to see Blackest Night on a movie?
I would love to see the Red Lanterns, especially for Dexter. I love Dexter, not just because my friend created him, but that's a story that for some reason I think a lot of people really latched onto. There's an emotional weight behind Dexter, which is the sad house cat. I would pay all of the money to see Red Lantern Corps, and they just play it completely straight.
Green Lantern came in that weird. I mean, when did that release? Like 2011 or something? It came in that weird in between time of going from the very corny, hokey comic book movies, i.e., like those first Fantastic Four films, you know, into the more serious Iron Man type comic book films. And it's like in that dead area of like very cheesy comic book movies and the comic book movies we see coming out now that are kind of made for that PG-13 good action, not super terribly cheesy hokey.
Well, I think well, the other thing about Green Lantern though is that it came out post Dark Knight, so I think that people's expectations for, I mean, and granted, Green Lantern was a horrible movie, and I will full disclosure, when it came out, I didn't hate it. Like I thought, I even said that summer I liked it more than X-Men First Class, which I have reversed opinion on now. Because they came out in the same summer, and there were aspects of the Green Lantern movie that I actually quite enjoyed. I liked all of the space stuff. I didn't like any of the Earth stuff. And with X-Men First Class, I didn't like any of the like First Class stuff. I liked the Magneto stuff. I didn't like the First Class stuff. But you know, after rewatching both films, I can see why Green Lantern is terrible, and a lot of it has to do with Ryan Reynolds and the casting of Blake Lively, and that's neither here nor there. But I do think that seriousness, you know, and I would actually argue that The Dark Knight kind of hurts comic book movies in a way that it's almost too, it's like the DC approach to movies is almost too serious now, where like Marvel has kind of threaded the needle between serious and fun, Guardians of the Galaxy being a good example.
That's what I was saying. I think it hurts DC movies.